everybody, and welcome to another edition, another session of the LinkedIn Live Conversations, LinkedIn Live Change Conversations. Always great to be with you. And we often will be always back with you on Tuesdays at 12 noon EST. And if you're joining us live, I need you to drop an emoji, say, or just drop a comment saying joining us live. And if you are watching the replay, drop a comment and an emoji as well, telling us that you're watching the replay or the broadcast. We always want to hear from you. And we want your questions as well. So as we go through the session or as we go through the discussion, would love for you to also ask the guest questions. And if you're watching the replay, also ask questions as well. And we want it to be an interactive discussion. So it's not all about me asking questions, although I get the privilege to ask the questions. And that's the fun bit for me and learn from our guests. So to get started, I have some interesting guests with me today. Our session today is all about what does it mean to be a change leader, and joining us are three folks, two of which are Change Leader Award winners, which is Amy and Christina. Christina was the winner of the Notable Change Leader Awards 2023, and Christina was the winner of the Sustainability Change Leader Awards 2023. And Adam from Havinger was part of the awards committee. So we want to get a take from three of them in terms of what does it mean to be a change leader. And what's more interesting about our conversation today is that both Amy and Christina are not only change leaders, but they are also change management practitioners as well. So maybe we're going to kick it off a little bit with two things. And these questions are to Amy and to Christina to start off with. So, Amy, tell us a little bit about yourself. And then once we hear a little bit about you, we're going to jump into, are you a change leader or are you a change management practitioner? Or even what's the difference? So tell us a little bit about your background, Amy.
Awesome. Thank you for having me. My name is Amy Hurdle, and I come from a very small town in Mahone Bay on the ocean in Nova Scotia. So I am in Canada, but I'm in this tiny little hole in the wall that is an absolutely amazing town. So if you have a chance, please visit. It's beautiful. I am also a mom of a 22-month-old. So if we think about change, lots and lots of change ahead.
That's change.
Yep, still in the world in the midst of that. So very happy to be a mom of one. In my 40s, which is pretty crazy too. So for me, I am, as you go on, hit on the nail, and same thing, I'm sure Christina, you're in the same boat. I'm very passionate about what I do, where I come from, and the background that I have. So I'm not only a change management practitioner, I wear lots of other fun hats that I've gotten to experience over the years and got to learn from lots of amazing people. So I have a Lean Six Sigma green belt. I've got my BA. I've worked in user experience. So I have what I call a well-rounded background that really helps me when I'm driving change and managing change and leading people. Really helps me to kind of craft my own practice and learn from others in different ways and help support people in different ways and bring in best practices from across various fields as well.
Awesome. So we're going to come back to you in that question because we really want to differentiate a change leader and a change manager and what it means to manage change versus what it means to lead change. Christina, I'm going to come to you. Tell us a little bit about you.
My name is Christina Jokic, and right now I'm leading the Modern TO program for the City of Toronto. I started my career in engineering actually in Alberta. I have experience working in a lot of sectors, mostly commercializing new technologies and sustainability. And that's actually how I came to change management because there was so many really amazing technologies that I was coming across, turning various fibers and agricultural byproducts into
Mm,
fuels and plastics that are biodegradable. But then when it came to commercializing it, there was so many problems structurally in organization, resistances,
mm,
issues with commercializing technologies, structural problems, and just a lot of resistances to get buy-in. So I really wanted to understand that psychological aspect of change. And so I pivoted my career to change management and organization development. I also am trained as a Gestalt psychotherapist. I don't practice as a psychotherapist, but I use that
Mm.
training in my work. And I think the thing that I've learned the most is that the most important thing is people, because you can have all these tools and systems and methodologies, but if you can't get the people on board and you don't have that culture aligned, you can't really do anything. So, good luck to you if you have like all the tools and methods and trainings and designations after your name. It's kind of pointless if the
I know, and
people are
we're gonna
not
come to that for sure.
there.
I can't. I'm so looking forward to digging into some of the things you've mentioned and you've shared with us. I have so many questions running in my head already. And shout out to Shaheen who's joined us. Gratitude to you as well for joining us live. If you're joining us live, drop a comment. Tell us where you're joining us from, whether you're watching the replay or you're watching the live, and drop us an emoji. We always want to hear from you, and get your questions ready as well as we get deeper into this discussion. Adam, tell us about you.
Yeah,
Introduce
so
yourself.
my name is Adam Rafai. I'm the finance and operations manager at Harbinger. So even though my focus is around a lot of finance and operations stuff for our firm, I do get a lot of exposure to the change management, change enablement side. So I've learned a tremendous amount of just the importance of change leadership and leading without title, being, I think, a good example of that myself. So that was a big reason as to why I wanted to be a part of the process for being on the Change Leader Awards Committee. And I'm definitely looking forward to having the discussion with two of the 2023 winners, our first year doing it. So I'll leave it at that because the focus will be with Amy and Christina. That's just a little bit about myself.
Thank you so much, Adam. Adam, like you mentioned, is part of Harbinger, and Harbinger was a sponsor of this awards, and it was important to partner with Harbinger on this awards because they live and breathe the concept of leading change without title or role. Like you don't have to have the title, you don't have to have a role. Everyone is a change leader. So it was really a pleasure to partner with Harbinger on this. Amy and Christina, I want to come back to you on this question. How would you differentiate between being a change leader versus being a change manager? Because often at times people feel, okay, it's a change leader title, it's a change management title. You have to have role, you have to have position, and you've done both of them. In having two of you win this awards, there were so many things around characteristics of being a change leader, which we focused on. But in your own words, tell us, what does it mean to be a change leader versus a change manager? Starting with you, Amy.
I actually heard a quote years and years ago, and it was when I was not in change management as the title. It was back when I was an operations analyst. My background predominantly is provincial and municipal government. So I have a wealth of experience in those fields prior to becoming a change manager and now helping lead some of that work. But in my experience, one quote I heard that to me stands out, and I always try to dive back into it, is the differentiation, just like you said, between leading and managing. So for me, you lead people. You don't manage people. You manage processes. You manage things. You manage, new policies and enact change that way. You're leading the people on that journey that will help you to change and update and invest in those processes and engaging them. But it's not about managing those people. You can't manage their expectations. You can't, it's trying to have kind of a broad separation there. But then when I step back and go, okay, well, what is leading people? What does leading people mean? So for me, I keep looking at communications. It's probably the largest part of my job. I'm sure, Christina, it's very much the same thing for yours. But it's the communications piece that's so key. In order to be able to help lead those people and guide those people, we need strong communications, transparency, and all of those things. So for me, it's that quote: "We lead people, we manage, processes and things." That's my
Okay.
biggest one.
I'm going to come back to you on that one. I want to hear
Mhm.
Christina's take. I have a question. I wouldn't call it a trick question, but I think it buttresses the point that you're saying. But I'll come back to you. That Christina, what's
Sure.
your take on leading change versus managing change?
I think when we get change certifications and designations and whatnot, we're taught to do a process,
Mm,
step one, two, three. And I think that's what managing change is. It gives you a framework, but leading change is it's something different. It's about inspiring people and building a fire in all of those people that are impacted by the change so that they want to belong to a cause or something greater than them. And I think it's more of an art sometimes because uh you can't really do things to people. All you can do is inspire people and bring them on a journey, and I think that's what leading change is about. You can't apply a change readiness assessment on people. It doesn't work like that, but you can do a change readiness assessment to learn about people and understand people and what might they be motivated by or what kind of things that they need. And so those things inform what you might do with people. But I think
mm,
leadership is more about being with people instead of doing something to them in order to change them. I think when I think of management, it's about it's a very industrialization mindset that looks at any kind of business or operations in a very mechanistic kind of way. And I think anytime you're dealing with people, you have to focus more on the relationships and like systems thinking and looking at the organization and the change more of as a system, a
mm,
complex system where there's relationships and one thing impacts another. So it's more about doing things with people and with the organization as opposed to just running a process and implementing some kind of methodology, which I'm sure all of us have done earlier in our careers and been very unsuccessful at.
yeah. And you know what? Managing change and management has its place, and Amy, I
Yeah.
love how you put it in terms of it's the processes, it's the frameworks, it's the deliverables, it's, the impact assessments, it's all of those things that need to be done. There's a place for those processes, frameworks, and structures. And but layering on top, and this is something that is very important to us when we in our change leadership course, when we teach people, is that in order to produce those items, it starts with the ability to lead change. It starts with the ability to work with people. You cannot do an impact assessment if you've not been able to work with the stakeholders in order to be able to identify what the impact is to them. So it starts off with that relationship building. You can't do your org assessment, your impact assessment, or develop your change strategy without first of all interacting, engaging with people, having that relationship with people, and looking at things from a kind of like people perspective. And but what I've found, and correct me in your own experiences, do you find that there are folks who go out there, they're managing the change without taking a step back to lead the change? So, in my perspective, every change manager needs to be a change leader. But is it possible to find change managers who are not change leaders? Is it possible? Like I said, in my opinion, every change manager also needs to be a change leader. But you can find change leaders who are not managing change, but have you ever come across change leaders who are sorry, change managers who are not leading the change? What are your thoughts on that? I'll start off with you, Christina.
Yeah, I think it depends on the scope of the project as well, because sometimes the scope is very technical if you're rolling out some project or process or something like that. I think you may just require to manage certain parts of that as opposed to leading certain parts of that. So I think it depends on the scope of the work that you're doing, and also the organization and their level of maturity with change or other things that are going on. Sometimes there's many projects that are rolled out and people are not ready, so it may take longer, and you may need to focus more on that change leadership aspect and building a coalition and a network and getting buy-in and those kinds of things, which I think are more of that culture and leadership building aspect of driving change versus some of the process based aspects, which I think are more important when you're doing project change management.
Yeah. And Amy?
100% agree. Yeah, it's for me, it's definitely the culture of the organization that you're working with, and then on top of that, it's also how mature. Just as Christina said, how mature are they, and even what they know about change management, and what they think it is. I've worked with a lot of folks that change management, change management. We need change management, and then when you get in there, you're so pumped because they need you, and they're excited, and you are so just like ready to lead change. But then when you get in there, you just kind of find out that they kind of want you to do a few assessments. And that's really where it ends. There's no, once the assessments are done, then this is how we analyze it. This is what our takeaways are. These are the impacts, the risks. This is what it means for, again, your people, your focus, your people. Sometimes it's just, as Christine said, it's so technical that that's all that's seen is that technical piece. They're missing that link to the people that will use the system, support the system, all of those things. So sometimes they don't see the forest for the trees, and sometimes it's because of culture and maturity in the organization to be able to accept proper and full change management. So sometimes it's hard in our jobs, especially I'm thinking my role as a consultant. It's difficult sometimes to be able to get that voice in there to say, N++. It's a little more than just that. So it's difficult. It's a balance of, okay, what does this project really, really need to do today? And what can I do to help them when the organization is at this level? And then when you're working with another one, it could be the complete opposite, and you've got carte blanche and you can do everything. So it really depends. Sometimes it's unfortunate.
It is. And, Adam, I'm coming to you in a second. But Amy, have you ever experienced this, or Christina? And this is me, putting on my change management strategy and consultant role, whereby you go in without even talking to anybody, without having the chance to meet with the stakeholders and engage one-on-one with stakeholders. They want you to develop a change management strategy and a change management plan. You haven't engaged with users yet. And they say, give us a change management plan.
Or a training plan.
Training. Yeah.
You always want a training plan.
Yeah, you haven't done stakeholder analysis to understand the stakeholders, how they're impacted by the change, understand the culture, in the organization. And because you have the micro cultures within the organization. So how you deliver that change to the micro sections or departments will differ. And it's like, oh my gosh, it's like I almost was like, no, we cannot do a change management plan until we have engaged with the users. So Adam, we're talking shop there, but I want to come back to you. And you touched on this a little bit at the beginning. And, I want you to go a little bit deeper into this. Why was it important to do the Change Leader Award? Why was it important to you, or even Harbinger, or just even as a whole? Why is this important?
Right. So firstly, I'm happy to be here with two change practitioners, because I'm not one myself, but I work a lot with change projects and change initiatives. So I've seen a lot of the change projects, but as someone with a different title, having to become a change leader in those projects and those engagements, I've been able to see the real benefits of it. So I'm curious to see, from a change practitioner's perspective, where that or what the challenges are to get other folks like myself or non people that aren't in a change leader or change management role to kind of think with that mindset. So I think being on the awards committee and even having the awards committee through the change leadership was really important to really build awareness that it's not just the change practitioners, it's the people that they're leading as change leaders on the change side that have to obviously be given the support from the organization and the enablement from the engagement to have that sort of influence and presence, but there really is some accountability on them to take that step and be leaders themselves. So I think for the awards, it was great to reach out to various different roles and industries to bring alignment of change leadership all together and really emphasize that it doesn't matter what your title or your role is or what kind of project you're on. There's change everywhere, and it's always going to be everywhere. So it's really putting that skill set and helping enable those in your organization to be able to handle that in the future.
Yeah, thank you, Adam. And that was really the backdrop of why it was important to us at the Change Leadership as an organization to do this award as well, to recognize that leading and responding to change, like we said earlier, isn't about role, isn't about title, but it's about making a difference. And in today's fast-paced business environment where change is constantly happening and disruption is constantly happening, it's no longer a role where we have to wait for somebody with the title of a leader or somebody with a change management practitioner title to come and lead the change. In our everyday roles, in everything we have to do, we're constantly having to make that decision and, you know, display skills, that we were able to identify, or characteristics we were able to identify with Christina and Amy, about being agile, communication, empowering others, being visionary, and having those type of leadership skills. And that's what's important in today, regardless of any role. When we think about the future of work and the new world of work that we are in, that everybody is a change leader, regardless of what title that is you hold. Those are skills that cannot be taken away from you. And leaning a little bit more into Adam's question, and Christina, I'll start with you. And we just, what are some of the challenges that you've been faced with as a change leader, and how do you overcome those challenges? So, and we really want to hear from you from a sustainability ESG perspective, which that's an area where you are an award winner. Is that sustainability is fairly new? You mentioned some projects earlier that you've had to face, whereby sometimes people don't see the benefits immediately when it comes to why do we have to do this. Last week there was so much around climate change and people debunking that climate change doesn't exist. So imagine having to implement a project where people don't even see value in it. They don't see that immediate value, and now you're trying to lead and manage that change. So Christina, what's it been like for you?
Thank you for the question. It has been a roller coaster in some sort of ways. It was one of the reasons why I left my engineering profession, because I started off my career working in the oil sands, and it was difficult for me to push some of those values that I believe in. And I think that that's something that what it means for me to be a leader in this field is like I'm fighting for something that's bigger than myself. And I think we have a moral obligation to take care of the planet and not just use it as if we're not caring about anybody or anything. And so it was one of the reasons why I that added to my decision of wanting to leave engineering as a field. And I tried to stay in it for some time to, work in more environmental areas and commercialization of new technologies. But even there, it didn't feel like I was making enough of an impact. And so I would say the way that the business world is built, it's built on kind of the path of least resistance, and there's a lot of things that are already in play that make it very difficult for new technologies that are trying to make the world better. Or even even in my current work where we're consolidating office space, right? And we're reducing the footprint and saving dollars. Those are all great benefits, but if people don't see the value in that, and they don't see that it's something good for just for them, it's not about for them, it has greater impact. And I think that that self focus is not always helpful when we're dealing with change. We have to think about, greater than ourselves, the impact to the environment, the impact to the future generations. And I think that our Western mindset and the impact of industrialization has forced us to be very self focused and individualistic. And I'm very motivated by other worldviews, like indigenous worldviews or more collectivist worldviews that look at things more holistically. And I try to inform the work that I do from that kind of mindset, because if I can educate people about different ways of looking at organizations and systems, they will naturally come to their own conclusions that we do have to do something more about the environment and resource use. And then it's easier for me to drive that change instead of telling them, well, here's all the benefits, you're going to save this many dollars and this many cubic feet of water. They don't really care about that. But if it's something meaningful for them, then it's easier to drive that change. And so one of the strategies that I try to do is I try to, because there's sometimes conflict in the work that I've done between what people want and what the organization or the like C-suite of an organization wants. So if I can make a bridge between those wants and really understand what people want and what does the organization or C-suite want, and kind of find some common ground, I think it allows the building of a path forward. Otherwise, nothing gets done.
Amy, it's like I hope everybody kind of sees why you got the award in the sustainability category because you really hit the nail on the head when it comes to doing projects which are social, economic, and very like the sustainability. When we think about sustainability in the long run, I know when we say sustainability in the change management space, people kind of think about sustainability as the life cycle of the change management, but really talking more around the ESG. So thank you for sharing that. Still with you, Amy, can you just give us one small short example of how you create that bridge and common ground? Because like you mentioned, it isn't often easy for people to see that value or benefit for them, especially in the industrial world, where whether we like it or not, we all are focused on the what's in it for me perspective. So how do you create that bridge? Just give us a practical example.
I think you meant Christina. I just want to make sure. So I'm
Yeah, I
just
meant
jumping
Christina.
in.
Yeah, Christina.
Sorry, no, okay, no problem. I just wanted to make sure.
No, I meant Christina. Sorry about that.
You said Amy, so
I
I
know.
was
Sorry,
waiting
my
for Amy to
apologies.
respond.
Apologies, everybody.
How do I create the
The
bridge?
bridge. The bridge.
Yeah, so I, like you mentioned, I want to understand what are the needs, and I want to meet people where they are, because if I am trying to push things somewhere where people are not, I can't build a road, So I try to meet all the involved parties where they are. I do a lot of focus one-on-one interviews to really understand the stakeholders, and I think that's where my Gestalt background really comes in handy, because I do psychoanalyze them and to really understand what are their motivations and
Hmm.
what are their challenges, and really get a sense of some of the like subtle nuances, the unconscious biases and things that they might be motivated by, because I think it's important to understand stakeholders from a whole perspective. they're
Mm-hmm.
they are people at the end of the day. They're not just, workers who have a role and some output that they have to create. They're psychodynamic beings that bring with them, children and families and
Mm.
traumas and all kinds of things. So I those things do inform what my assessment of them. And then I always bring people together because I think if you can humanize each other, then you take out that objective,
Mm.
well, this person is this and they believe these things. Well, why don't you just bring them together and let them learn about each other in a facilitated, structured. I'm a process expert. I'm really good at process. So I bring people together and I just take them through the process. And at the end of the process, they they see each other and then I
Mm.
can do my work.
Oh my gosh, you just gave a great example there of something that I love to say all the time, which is about, as change leaders and change management practitioners, we are not the heroes in the story or in the journey. You know, they are the ones who are the experts, in the culture, in the change, in knowing what needs to happen and how best is. We come in there as the shepherd to help guide the process. You brought up things like empowerment. You empower them to do it. You bring in collaboration, to be able to facilitate the process. You focus on people. You mentioned empathy, emotional intelligence, all of the characteristics that add to being a great change leader. So thank you so much for sharing. And now Amy, this is for you. Amy, your background is in government. You worked in the provincial area. You've had to start up ACMP in Manitoba, I believe.
Atlantic Canada.
In
Atlantic
Atlantic
Canada.
Canada.
Yeah.
So, you've done the startup, you've formed, you've mobilized people, so, when it comes to leading change, you've played that role in mobilization. And when it comes to doing change within the government and in that space, it can be difficult in public sector.
Very.
There are challenges in leading change in the public sector. And interestingly, both Christina and Amy are in the public sector when it comes to leading change, so you have some commonality there. So, Amy, what are some of those challenges that you've experienced in leading change and how have you overcome them? Give us some practical examples.
Yeah, for me, it's communications. It's probably the biggest thing that I see fall down. And it's a shame because it's, to me, the easiest thing. I think about communications. I'm a huge communicator, even probably in my personal life, outside of my professional life. Like you said, I do a lot of volunteer work. I'm a director of governance on our Atlantic Canada Committee for ACMP. I'm the current chair of the Global Growth Committee with ACMP. So I try to entrench myself in my volunteer activities.
Yeah,
And
and
then
let's
try
just
to,
stop you for a
yeah,
second. For anybody who may not be aware, ACMP's Association of Change Management Professionals,
yes,
because we're
mouthful.
we're geeking out already on the acronyms.
Yes, my apologies.
No, I started it. I said ACMP, so go ahead.
They're fabulous, fabulous group. If you don't know them, check them out. They're absolutely amazing group. But yeah, I would say, I think back even to the volunteer work that I do, communications is the biggest breakdown, especially my background with public sector. And it's not just top; it's the bottom as well. Like things aren't going up that leadership executives need to know, and things aren't making it to the ground that the folks utilizing, supporting the services need to know, and then citizens that might be also the end user of the services. So for me, when I think about the biggest roadblock, the biggest problem with any change is typically, in my experience, communications. So one thing that I like to do to try to kind of almost back the boat up, because like you had mentioned earlier, sometimes we come in and we're just told to manage a thing. Just go change manage that thing over there, that process, that whatever. And we're not really given a lot of access sometimes even to the people. So Christina was talking about being able to talk to people, talk to the stakeholders, get to know them, figure out what impacts them, and get that nitty gritty. Sometimes we don't get that opportunity. So regardless of whether you get the opportunity to do that or don't, one of the biggest things I like to do is it's like the threefold benefits and the why. So I've seen so many times, I've worked on so many projects, not as a change manager, just as an employee in government, and seen people come out executive leaderships or sponsors or a department come out and say, here's our benefits, and it's 10 or 12 bullets, and they're written at such a high level that it's very hard, regardless of what level that you're working on, to come in and understand it, bite into it and go, hey, I get that. That makes sense. Now I know why. I'm going to engage. I want to be on board. I want to be a part of this. So one thing I like to try to, after having all these experiences, step back and do is it's threefold for me. It's benefits and a why, but I like to start with, okay, usually when you come into a project, you're meeting executive leadership, the people that are at the top first, that's who you meet, and you get to kind of know them. So I like to do an exercise with them to get to know their why. So beyond the vision, what is your why? What is that organizational why? The benefits that you'll reap as an organization or department. Once I've got all that, I kind of break it down into very easily digestible bites. So maybe 2 or 3 key bullets. We just want 2 or 3. Then I move to that next layer, which is typically middle management, supervisors, employees, staff, same conversation at that level. Okay, this is what we're doing. You've been brought on board to either assist in project or be engaged, be users, help us through this process. What do you think the benefits are? What's your why? What do you want to get out of it? Same process. And then I go the third layer, which if we're lucky, and I've so far been pretty lucky in my career, I've been able to have access to some citizens, like a little pocket of people that I can chat with that are our end users that are using the actual product or service that they're working on, or the client, and same exercise there. What I find the benefit of doing all of that legwork is then you've stepped back, you've gotten almost everybody that you possibly could get, a little smattering of, and get their understanding, is you now have a big picture. We talk about big picture all the time. And it's so hard if you're only coming into projects, which unfortunately is what we typically do, is come in and just go, here's the vision, here's the mission, here's the benefits. Off you go. But no one really full-heartedly understands it and has had a chance to bite their teeth into it. So I just find that if you do it at a 3-level stage, it's super easy. People start to feel engaged and start to see themselves in that picture. Then when you reshare that, you've got that holistic view. You've got that big picture at all levels. People can see it. Now it's like a journey. Oh, this is how it helps who I work for in my organization, my government. And this is how it'll help me as a staff member serving a citizen. This is how it helps my end user, the citizen. I just find it's simple. It starts that engagement journey of people thinking and wanting to be a part of it. It also helps you when you get to the next more nitty-gritty stages, looking at assessments, so stakeholder assessments, looking at impacts, risks, and all of those things. So when they come up, people, now that they've figured out your journey and your why and how they fit into that puzzle, they're more apt to help you maybe solution. If this doesn't work this way in this process that we're looking at developing, how could we make a change to make a better impact or remove that roadblock or that barrier? It helps people start to want to be engaged with you. I just find it's a simple step.
That is so good. Thank you. And Adam, I want to bring this to you. So you as a change leader, I know you've posed this question to Amy and Christina, but as a change leader yourself, not just being on the awards committee, because you have been part of leading and driving change in your organization and working alongside, change practitioners in your own organization. What are some of the key challenges that you have come across, or just one key challenge you've come across, and how were you able to overcome that change or face that challenge head on to lead the change?
Yeah, I mean, I would definitely agree with Amy around the communications piece. I've seen that firsthand, where it's not top priority for a lot of change initiatives, and as soon as that happens, there's a lot of breakdown in communications that go out, communications getting delayed, and that just has such a significant impact to the overall project. So aside from that, I think also you guys were talking about the framework and sharing a plan or an approach before even getting to meet with different people within the organization to be able to build that out. I think on top of that, one of the biggest challenges I've seen is organizations being able to adapt to having to have a flexible plan and approach for changes that just come throughout the project. So changing the approach slightly to accommodate different things that have come up or from different phases of the project. So I specifically work a lot on the training plan or the training approach of a lot of our engagements. So switching how we're going to maybe deliver training for certain user groups because of certain needs and certain aspects that come up. COVID was obviously a big one there. So having to change a lot of our delivery from instructor-led in person to virtual instructor-led training sessions. So making changes like that, making sure that there's buy-in from the entire organization, that they're aware through communications of what the benefits are and why we're changing the approach in that matter. But then also for continuous improvement and lessons learned from that aspect, thinking about how we can address that challenge proactively at the start of future engagements and kind of incorporating it there, so that we're not kind of putting ourselves in the same position over and over. I've kind of seen
Yeah.
a little bit, but obviously it's going to take time to, excuse me, to establish that and really fine tune it so that we can address it right away and really focus on streamlining that process.
Yeah, I like what you say there in terms of the looking at the lessons learned is something so simple to do that people tend to miss. You're going back to speak to the same stakeholders. What lessons did we learn? What worked with those stakeholders? It's really about understanding our stakeholders so that we can better engage with them. And, you also said something which was adapting to change, like being flexible, because that change management plan or change strategy is not set in stone. It's really about if we're consistently and constantly listening to our stakeholders, we're able to, listen to their hearts, we're able to hear them and see, okay, what works. And Amy, I want to come back to you. I love your communication approach and the 3-layered approach in terms of helping you ensure that you're engaging with every level. One of the challenges that I've experienced, and I hear a lot from people who work in like public sector type of organizations where the hierarchy is really rigid, type of thing, is sometimes they say, don't go and talk to that stakeholder, don't go and talk to that person. You're not allowed to do this, you're not allowed to do that. How can you effectively influence change in a situation where it sometimes feels as though your hands are tied? And Christina, this might apply to you too. What does it mean? So if you had to give somebody a tip very quickly to say, how do you influence change whereby without sometimes that power and authority?
I think it's enabling others. Christina talked about it earlier, empowering, enabling others to be able to make that connection. So sometimes even as a change manager, you're not able to be the one to communicate or lead a certain change. They'll close the door for you and say, nope, you don't get access to this person, or you can't really talk to them, or you shouldn't. So sometimes your hands do become tied, not of your own accord. But for me, I would say work with who you can work with, capture everything that you possibly can that you're able to share. So I think about things like communications and transparency. So sometimes unfortunately, as communicators in general, we want to share things and we have it wrapped in a bow. We know all the answers. We've got everything tidy. Our PowerPoints are ready to prep us. We're, those kinds of things. And that's not necessarily change management, but that's typically how leaders want to communicate, is when they have all the information at their fingertips, because they're most confident, comfortable. My role is to kind of help try to lead a little bit of that and let people be a little bit more vulnerable and say, lead with some of your emotion, lead with a little vulnerability. Sometimes we talk when it's a snapshot in time. So sometimes we can talk about what we know today. Today, this is what I can tell you. Not that it might not change tomorrow, but if it does, I will communicate that change to you tomorrow. And here's how you can get involved. Here's the feedback mechanism that you can share information back with us. But it's certainly finding an ally or empowering others that maybe have access to some of those people to be able to share all of those stories, the journeys, the important information. I have found that doing it that way and having that almost side person that becomes your work best friend, that's your co-communicator, enables you that as you progress, now you're able to have the door opened. I have found that does start to open up. Now they've built that trust, that buy-in. You've got a little bit of that relationship now. So they see that you can lead effective change, even if it's difficult. And I know the doors are shut, but it does help to have an ally.
I like that. So you two things I bring out there. You bring out so many things, but two key things is the coaching and the empowering. So coaching those other folks through them, empowering and coaching them through the process. And then when they're able to demonstrate those quick wins, those low hanging fruits, they're able to pull you back in and say, oh, this worked.
Exactly.
Amy, what else? What else? What else? We want some more. What else? You know,
Yes.
and Christina, and maybe this is plays a little bit of a role when we talk about the neuroscience of change and psychotherapy in terms of sharing information as early as possible. Because, like Amy said, you know, people want that information tied in a bow to say it's tied, it's nice, it's sealed. So from your psychotherapy background, I think it was a psychotherapy, and also even when we talk about the neuroscience of change, how do you influence people to share information when it's not ready, it's not tied in a bow, but we know that people want to see information as early as possible to get comfortable with the change, good or bad? What do you say to that, Christina?
Well, I think it's important to be transparent. So share what you know and what you don't know and what's still to be determined. And I think that creates a level of safety for people because it also lets them know that you're human also, and it creates that container for learning. So change won't happen if there isn't psychological safety there. People need to feel safe. And if they don't feel safe, if you don't create an environment where they can share the good, the bad, the ugly, and maybe you don't know some things, maybe they're still being decided upon. I think being transparent about that is important. So the other thing too, it's important to let the people have a voice and have a place where they can share their concerns, whether that's through learning engagements, but in those scenarios, you give people a place to work through their own anxieties around the change. And if they're given a place where they can listen and be heard, it allows them to work through some of those early stages. The change cycle, the early stages of the change cycle is anxiety and fear. And if we can listen to them and they can get more information about what is known and what is not known, I think it helps bring that fear down.
Mm, thank you for sharing that. And talking about wrapping bows on the message, I want to wrap a bow on this one and, wrap it up with, Amy, I have a final question for you. And maybe Adam, if you have any final question, you can think about that now. So, Amy and Christina, and starting with you, Amy, is what does this award mean to you? To be recognized as a change leader.
I'm extremely honored, humbled, and surprised all in one. But when I got the notification, I had said to my other half, I was like, oh my gosh. Oh my! I don't even know. I don't think I had words. There's a lot of oh my goshes. And then I just sat down and I was like, okay. I'm like, this. It's not. I look at it and go, it's not just me, and it's not tooting everybody else's horn around me. But it took a village. I didn't get here to be who I am and who I shaped up to be today and be in the position that I'm in without all of the experiences and all the folks that I had in my life. Like my parents were the most, or I shouldn't say are the most amazing people I have ever had in my lifetime. My grandpa, same thing. They raised me to be independent, fall on my face when I needed to fall on my face and pick myself back up. It didn't matter if I made the wrong decision. They were there to support the wrong decision. They're like, it doesn't
They
matter.
created a
You'll still be
safe
here.
environment for you.
Exactly. Yeah. So I had my family standing me up all my life. They're still doing the same thing. My biggest cheerleaders in my corner since I was a baby. But it goes back to I'm thinking one of my high school teachers led me into my Bachelor of Public Relations. He's like, you're a communicator. You could do good things with that. And told me about this degree. And I was like, okay, I'll check it out. And then from there, I look at the coaches and and they weren't even labeled coaches, the coaches and the leaders that I had through my time as an employee in government that led me into doing things like my BA, my CCMP, and all of those other things that I've now, all the knowledge. I don't call it, I guess, like degrees and things I've collected. I look at it as knowledge. I wanted to learn. I'm a knowledge seeker, and I just learned all of these things. But I got these little nuggets from people that had these awesome skill sets and stuff. I want to learn that. I want to know more about that. I want to engage better with those folks. So for me, it's a village. It took everybody. It's my daughter. Village. It's my partner. It's everybody.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that, Amy. And Christina, for you, what does it mean to specifically even get an award in the sustainability area. This is you having an engineering background that you thinking I cannot lead and drive change here, I'm not making a difference, and then you now get an award as a change leader in, you know, based on the work that you've done around in leading change in, you know, that technology, sustainability, social and economic, you know, type of change or area. What does this mean for you, Christina?
Well, I was also very surprised that I won the award. I was there at the conference and I was there with my boss, and I was initially perplexed. I was like, she's like, "You're getting the award." And I'm like, "That's not me. It's not me." Like, and then my name was there and I was like, "It's me." Okay. And I swear it took me a week to process why I got the award. But I get it. I got the award not because of what I did, but because of who I am. And I think it was so meaningful to me to be recognized as a winner, because it's not about me. It's not about what I've done, or like I achieved all these successes. Yes, those things are important, but I think it's about my values and who I am. And I think that's what it means to me, that I'm contributing to something that's bigger than myself, and I'm influencing all these people around me to be something better in the world, and to make things better, make organizations more humanistic and more like nature, not like industrial machines. And that's what I'm about. And I also remember this quote from my daughter's karate class. They always say that winners never quit and quitters never win. And I think that that's what we have to do as change leaders. Sometimes it's relentless and we have to keep fighting the good fight, but it comes back down to who we are and who we're trying to give to the world as a gift. And I think my gift is to make the world a better place and make the world more humanistic in organization. So if I can keep doing that, I'm doing the right thing.
Thank you so much, Amy. I'm sorry, Christina. Why am I mixing up? Thank you so much, Christina. Right, you said. Okay, so Adam, what's your question that you're going to wrap a bow on with?
Yeah, so just thinking back to the process of submitting your applications, and I know it's only been a little bit over a month since we've announced the winners of the awards. But do you have any words of encouragement for future potential applicants of the Change Leader Awards, or kind of what was going through your mind that made you think this is something I wanted to apply for?
Yeah, and just to give folks a background about the process. So what it is we had people nominate folks, you know, people could self-nominate, and, you know, so we had quite a bit of nominations saying, you know, I nominate this person to be an award. And after that, we reached out to each of the recipients or each of the nominees, you know, to say, could you please submit an application? And, you know, they had to give us information on about, I believe, about 5 to 7 categories on characteristics of what makes a change leader, and share with us more information that the committee was able to use to make a decision. So just a background. So back to you, Amy and Christina. Any one of you can start.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. Yeah, I don't even know how to answer that, because the questions were so in depth and so amazing that I had to. I talk a lot, so I naturally write a lot. So I really didn't even. I was found myself right, and then like I ran out of room, and I'd have to go back through and kind of cut. But for me, the only advice I could give is just exactly what Christina said, and I think similar to what I said, is be you. Put your best foot out there, and you're leading change, you're supporting change, or you're supporting groups that are going through whatever, whether it's small change, large change. Do your best, learn, engage. My biggest win was volunteering and starting to hear from people all over the world. I get to meet with India, Ukraine, and talk to like-minded change managers all over the world and learn about their experiences and how they use the tools and what works for them in their industries. And learned a lot from Christina today. So, I mean, it's just, you know, it's so different for all of us and our backgrounds and how we shape up to be who we are. I think we're all in the right field and we're doing really awesome things, and there's no reason why we can't all be applying for these types of things or all being nominated for them. So we really are standing for some good change out there, and the more we can spread that word and share our experiences and share what worked for us or didn't work, the bigger we get, the better we get as people as well. Exactly. We're making bigger ripples.
Yes, the bigger the impact. And Christina, Adam's question.
Yeah, I think it's important to just be yourself, because the experience and the world views and the background that you bring is whoever you are, unique to you. And no, I cannot be that. None of us can be that. I cannot influence the things that other people can influence that bring a different perspective or different world views. So I think being true to yourself and not trying to be fake, I think is one thing that I have found for myself to be important. Is it's like it's not about the ego or something like that. I think it's more important to just be true to yourself and what your gifts are, and to have that growth mindset. I like what Amy was talking about, just that continuous learning, because we can learn in so many places. There's so many courses that are available on LinkedIn or other places, and so many forums where we can learn new things. And I think that that is important for this work, especially because it lets us analyze and break down complex problems and look at things in a different way, which sometimes when you're dealing with complex change, which I think most of us are that are dealing with non-project change management are, we're dealing with people, systems, tools. I think we need to look at things in different ways than we may typically, want to break it down in some traditional or like process that's in some book. But if we stop and like consider, how is this like a flower, or what would an aboriginal tribe do here to solve this problem, and look at the problem in a different way, I think it really opens our mind. And I think whatever we have to bring to that, I think we should just be ourselves. Just be
Mm.
yourself.
Thank you so much, and really great question. Wrap up to that. I know we got a question from Osa, and it almost feels like there's an alignment to the last thing you said, which is the intersectionality of people analytics and CM deliverables. When you talk about even the orange and understanding people, it's like once we understand who people are, when we've done that analytics in terms of understanding their needs, what drives them, what are their fears, why are they doing this or not doing this, we can take that data and feed it into how we design our change management strategy. We can take that data and design it into how we build our training plan, which we spoke about today. We can take that data and put it into our communications. We can take that data, we can even look at the change curve, and say, where are they on the change curve? This group of people are on this part of the change curve. This is how we will handle this segment of audience. These people are here where they're ready to go, they bought on the change. So guess what we're going to do? We're going to make these people our change agents who are going to help us drive the change. These people these are a group of managers. They may be experiencing fatigue from the change, and how do we support that change fatigue? So having that data where we've empowered people, we're collaborating with people, we've gathered the data, we've heard them, because so many times we do that survey, we do that culture audit, we get all of those analytics, we get all of those data, but guess what? We don't do anything with those data. We don't feed it into how we design our change management strategy. We don't feed it into how we design all the deliverables in our change management plans. That is why I struggle with any organization that I go in with, and the first thing they say to me is, give me a change management plan, when I haven't had the chance to gather the people data and the people analytics and that data to be able, to now focus on my change management deliverables. So also, I did not mean to answer that question. I was going to tell you that was going to be a topic for another day. So I don't know how that happened, quite honestly, But thank you to everybody. Well, 1 o'clock, a little bit over time. I try to keep this into 45 minutes, but we had really great guest today. So thank you so much and congratulations again. And I look forward to engaging with you more and even having you back, on LinkedIn Live, where we can, delve into topics, even like the psychotherapy around change, neuroscience of change, and even Amy, what it means to be a startup. Adam, we got you. We're allies, we got them, so I know you're by my side and we're driving this and making it happen. And we're louding up the message about what it means to be a change leader. And anybody can be a change leader. Anybody can drive change. So on that note, thank you, everybody. Happy 4th of July to our American cousins and folks at Canada Day belated. Canada Day was at the weekend, July 1st. So we've had a long Canada Day weekend. So happy Canada Day and happy 4th of July to everybody. And thank you, everybody. Bye for now.
Bye. Thank you.
Congratulations,
Take care.
ladies.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye.